Have you ever had a feeling that somebody was dead and it turned out that they were? This may not be much comfort, but I have definitely felt it. I went to school one day feeling sick, but I didn't have a fever and I wasn't vomiting, so I went to class. I was in science class when I felt something. I don't know how to describe it, but it was bad. Like everything went still. The teacher gets a call and tells me that my mom is in the office waiting for me and I was going to go home. I remember running down to the office, and when I got home, my mom told me my dad had died in the hospital. I've gotten the same feeling from each of my great-grandparents' deaths. My great-grandfather made me bolt up wide awake when I was sleeping, and my great-grandmother's death made me start crying and feel sick. I didn't know until the next day. Please know it's not your fault and I'm sorry for your loss. The day my best friend killed himself, I knew by the afternoon. He hadn't texted me yet and something in me just knew. Don't feel bad. He was sick and you had no idea knowing which way it was gonna go. You couldn't have known. And you were trying to be as considerate as possible. Please don't beat yourself up. I'm so sorry for the loss of your friend. I'm so sorry, friend. There was nothing that you did wrong. Though I know that is of little comfort. I was scheduled to have surgery right around the time my grandmother decided to go into hospice care. I spoke to her on the phone while I was recovering. But I held off on visiting her because I knew she would worry if she saw me looking off or in pain. My recovery took about 3 weeks. But at the 2-week point, I started feeling really uneasy about waiting that long to go see her. And I decided I was going to visit her the day after next, which was the weekend. But she died in her sleep the next day. It was very tough and the feelings of guilt lasted for a while. But I do fully recognize now that there was no way I could have known what was going to happen. I'm wishing you peace and hoping you get there soon too. Edit. A kind stranger pointed out that autocorrect did me dirty smiley face. I've never had this happen, but oh boy have I worried about people dying so many times for so many reasons. Pretty sure someone should start checking on me 'cause anxiety is killer. It's always the 0.0000001% of times we decide not to check. Similar thing happened to me with my great-uncle's death in Egypt. I was just sitting there thinking something isn't right. Suddenly I get a phone call from my aunt telling me he'd just passed. Same exact feeling with my uncle ended his life. It was like everything was suddenly far too crisp and clear and something felt off. Like someone moving keys to a different hook. Or pushing something an inch to the left. I went to my dad's that night for him to tell me and it was horrible 'cause I already knew. Don't feel awful about it. It's not something you can control and I'd urge you to maybe get some grief counseling to help you deal with the emotions of it. It's not your fault. I was thinking about a professor of mine one day and I wondered if he was still alive. He wasn't super old, but he's had a few health issues and I just randomly had that thought. And I remembered I still have a book I borrowed from his, so I texted him the next day to ask for his address so I can return it, and his wife texts me back saying he passed away. Feeling guilty and as if you should have done something different is a super common part of grieving. You aren't bad at all for how things happened. Sorry for your loss. Had this happen this weekend. A coworker I was pretty close to got fired last Thursday and he took it pretty hard. He asked me to pick him up from a bar at like 7 p.m. because he was too drunk to drive. So I picked him up and brought him home. I didn't hear from him the next few days and I could just feel something was wrong. On Monday we had a staff meeting and my boss opened by letting us know that my old coworker had overdosed on heroin over the weekend and died. As far as I know, I was the last person to interact with him. And I kinda wish I had been more diligent on checking in with him. But I definitely know the feeling you had. Super sorry for your loss. I can't imagine how hard it is for you. There's nothing you could have done, most likely. Yes. When I was around 8, I just had this feeling that my nanny, Grandma, was gonna die. I just felt like something was going to happen. I spent all night crying and telling my mom that I needed to see her just one more time. I just knew it. The next day my mom told me she died in her sleep. Surprisingly, I was not as distraught as I was the night before. I think I had already accepted it was going to happen. I just wanted to be able to say goodbye. I don't know. I get this feeling all the time when I don't hear from someone for too long, but they always end up alive. It might be an anxiety thing on my end. My mom told me that she has this sense of people dying. Had it with her mom, some neighbor, and other people. Interestingly, when after she was called after my suicide attempt, she knew I was alive before they told her. I have felt this sort of shit my entire life. I remember hiding under my bed one late night, spraying artificial flowers with perfume before I just started bawling. I knew my great-grandmother, someone I adored dearly, was gone. Same with all the very many cats my family had as pets over the years. The dogs, grandparents, random family members I have maybe met twice in the past decade. A friend who I just knew I wouldn't see alive again after that last goodbye. There's just, I don't know how quite to explain it, but it's like the weight of the air changes. It becomes hollow, resonating, and yet soft. For me, it is akin to the silence one hears when outside during a steady, calm snowstorm, and the way that quiet seems to permeate everything it touches. It hits the throat and chokes the vocal cords. Once you feel it, you never forget it. The biggest mindfuck for me was when my mom's MS started to get really bad. It started with hearing 5 years from David Bowie and just knowing in my gut it was a warning. I was 25 then. I did my best to try and see her, to work as her aide. My sister controlled that, and would rather let her sit in the other room with an ancient TV, while she was passed out drunk in her own room with a giant flat screen. My sister is an entitled narcissist though. I tried to see her as often as I could, while raising my own family. I remember when it was getting to the end, though, I wanted to go see her for my birthday. Something in my gut told me it was already too late, that this was the beginning of her descent. I had had a dream that morning, where she gave me odd sticks. One had an octopus on it. She was put in the hospital that day with pneumonia. My sister was wearing octopus gauges when I saw her that matched her stick. I remember my asshole narcissist aunt telling mom it was okay to go. Everyone came to say goodbye. I told her I wasn't going to tell her what to do. She lived another month and a day. The dreams I had both mornings were so fucked up. I knew upon waking up from the second one that it was going to be the day, and told my SO as much. I wasn't wrong. I was 30 years old. And to this day I will always be grateful to her. As complicated as she was, that at least mom held out until it wasn't my birthday, or the day I was originally supposed to be born on. I know that was all her own will. She was stubborn as fuck. God's rest her. Admittedly, I am not looking forward to when her mother, my grandma, passes. She is probably the only real family I have left from blood relations that has never gone out of their way to hurt me. I can tell you it'll probably be soon. I'll probably be aware of dozens more before I die, too. Ignoring it never stopped it or helped. So at this point, I just accept it. I guess my point is, don't blame yourself or take it as a curse. I sorta figure, if monkeys can tell, even when separated, that a family member has died. How far off are we? Really? At least it gives forewarning. A tiny bit of time to brace and prepare oneself for the greatest inevitability. I guess that's one way to look at it. Anyhow, I hope you take some solace in knowing you are far from alone in recognizing when death visits. I hope that brings you more comfort than grief. My deepest condolences for the loss of your friend. If this is your first experience with sensing death, I'm sorry it was so traumatic. Coming from experience, there was likely very little, if anything, you could have done to change it. In school we had this teacher, also headmistress, who was extremely overweight, but in a way that you could tell that it wasn't necessarily from eating too much but probably because of some hormonal imbalance. She had quite normal arms and legs but a massive belly. It's hard to explain, but as a woman who has friends with hormone problems, I have seen similar things before. She also once mentioned that she has to take medication for the rest of her life. One afternoon she did not show up for class and that never happened. No one knew where she was. Even the other teachers didn't know. I remember saying to my friend that she probably died because she'd been looking very tired and unhealthy. A few days later one of the other teachers told us that she had died the day before I said that, and it took them a few days to find out. At the end of term he also handed me an essay that they had found in her belongings, but she never managed to read it. She was cool. My friend, L, had just dropped off our mutual friend, J, and I at my house. L was gonna go pick up her boyfriend, M, who lived on a desolate county road. Police scanner said there was a rollover accident involving 2 cars on the road M lived on. 1 fatality, 1 critical. J, sitting next to me, started screaming. I asked J what was wrong and all she could say was, "She's dead." We tried calling L. No answer. At this point it hit me. She's dead. We spent the next 5 hours calling L's phone, still no answer. The next morning J gets a call from L's mom. L was dead. J started screaming again. I tried my best to comfort J, but I was kinda in shock. Turns out a drunk driver side-swiped L's car. She was ejected and hit a tree. Drunk driver got his 3rd DUI and a negligent homicide charge once he got out the hospital. He was sentenced to 25 years to life. I never got over L's death. I doubt J or M did either. I ended up in the state hospital shortly after that. J, M, and I haven't really talked since I got out. L was a bright light in a dark world. I miss her very much. I'm sorry for your loss, and I'm sorry that you were the one to find your friend. Months ago, on the night that my girlfriend passed, I knew that she was taken to the hospital and wasn't feeling well the previous nights. I was worried and thinking about her the night that she died. I remember getting a weird thought: what if she dies? How would I cope with it? Well, that night I got a text message from her mom, telling me of my girlfriend's passing. What is even weird about it? I found out that my girlfriend wasn't able to be confirmed deceased until after midnight, an hour or 2 after she had passed. So it is very likely that my thought occurred within minutes of her death. The thought left me feeling guilty, as if I had determined her fate by having said thought. I've felt it before when one of my high school friends died. I was looking for him all day, and I swore I saw him once in the morning. Then after that I felt really bad. That night, I got the call. It sounds like you're dealing with a lot of toxic guilt. Just think about it rationally. You were trying not to disturb them so they could sleep. Nothing wrong with that. Heck, I've slept 14 hours before when sick. Even if you had caught him before he passed, there is likely little you could do. My grandma passed from COVID. And it seemed like when she reached a certain point, that was it. There was no coming back. Your friend was very ill. And it's likely the hospital wouldn't even be able to help them. They also could have reached out or called 911. The other comments are right in thinking that the coulda woulda isn't great. Read up in toxic guilt. What happened, happened. Beating yourself up doesn't help the situation. And I'm sure your friend wouldn't want you to feel this way. I'm sorry for your loss. I always think that when looking for someone who's quiet in my house. And obviously, you just got unlucky. Not at all your fault. Finding anyone dead is traumatizing. Feeling awful is normal. I mean, the guy was quarantining, and if not being on Facebook within 10 hours being a sign of a serious medical condition, then I guess I'm considered dead. No, seriously. Not being on Facebook for 24 hours is no way a sign that they need serious help.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Achocolatemilkcow is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.